And thank you for joining us. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm your host, Daniel Davis. Today, joining us on the program today is an expert who's going to be talking with us about a subject that I might find, and you should find, very intriguing: whole person lifelong vitality. Joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program today is Rabbi Gabriel Cousens, MD, who is the founder and director of the Tree of Life Rejuvenation Center and the founder of the Tree of Life Foundation, which is known as a worldwide spiritual teacher and the world's leading medical authority on live food nutrition. He's also been author of several books, including There is a Cure for Diabetes, Spiritual Nutrition, and Depression Free for Life, among others. And he's here to join us on the Beyond 50 radio program today to talk about what it means to live as a whole person with lifelong vitality. And Rabbi Gabriel Cousens, I'd like to welcome you to the Beyond 50 radio program.
Thank you, Daniel. I'm very pleased to be part of the show.
Now, I like the name of your foundation, Tree of Life. Now, why or how did you come about that particular name for your business, or what it is that you do?
Well, the Tree of Life is really a Kabbalistic term, and it goes right back to the Garden of Eden. And really, it communicates the essence of the life force that, in essence, Adam and Eve didn't quite get to the first round, so to speak. And it is about turning on to life. It's about when you have all the forces in your life balanced, then you become a fully vital, turned-on human being, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. But it is really a term. It's 6,000 years old. Not exactly a new term, but we apply it to how do you become a vital life force now. You know, in the work that we do at the Tree of Life is indeed how to support people in reconnecting to meaning and value and spirit in their lives.
Now, you've been doing this for quite a few years now. Talk to us about vitality. I mean, here you are at the age of 60, as I understand.
66.
You're doing about 9 times more push-ups than you ever did when you were in your 20s. So what was it that you were doing that kept you to a point where it seemed like you were growing stronger with each passing year?
That's a good question. So we go back to age 20, captain of an undefeated Amherst College football team, National Football Hall of Fame, good athlete, okay? 70 push-ups, more than anyone else can do, okay? Mm-hmm. And now at age 60, which is where you started, which is when I hit that peak, I did 601. What happened? Well, there are a few things that happened. One of them is since 1983, we kind of moved to a live food, plant source only diet. Now, that's not the only thing. You can't just eat your way to vitality, but it helps. Now, why does it help? Well, let's kind of back up a second and understand since 1917, where they did research at Yale University Medical School, they found that people who were actually not plant source only diet had 2 to 3 times vitality and endurance than athletic meat eaters. So we're running at 26 years on that kind of diet. You get kind of there's an improved vitality. And, we want to go the other way for a moment. And the research around the world, and the China study shows that people who have the most amount of plant source only food have the least amount of heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, arthritis, all levels of and cancer. Very significant statement, because clearly when you realize, for example, 25% of the people 60 and older, 25% have diabetes. That's a horrendous statistic, and that means you have accelerated aging. Diabetes means accelerated aging. So if you're a meat eater, you're going to run a 4 times higher, 3.8 to 4 times higher rate of diabetes than a non-meat eater. So one of the sources of vitality is that when you're going plant source, there's more energy coming directly from the sun, electron energy going into your system, and you become more healthy and vital. Mm-hmm. Now, that being said, we can't really say that you can't eat. There's more to life than just what you eat, and it is leading a life of meaning. And one of the things that we really do at the tree of life here is that we empower people to reconnecting to their own life of meaning. Not my idea of life of meaning, but a particular person's own meaning of that. Now, for example, we had somebody in the diabetes program, 76 years old. His normal blood sugar is 100 or less, and his blood sugar, he's diagnosed with diabetes, out of control at blood sugar of 225. Doctor says he has to be on medication. It's not what he wants to do. It's not what his wife wants to do, who's the same age. And, they're challenged. So they come here, and within 4 days, his blood sugar is less than 100. Mm-hmm. He's now normal. He's continued to be normal. Now, what happened? And he and his wife go away very, very happy because they have reconnected in a deeper way to life of meaning, and also a kind of deeper belief system that if they really just take care of themselves, everything will come into line, mm-hmm. which is, of course, more of his wife's value than his. But by the time we finish our 21-day program, this guy's sparkling. Mm-hmm. He's a whole new person. He's bright. He's shiny. He's really happy. He's turned on to life because he's had a significant success, and which is conquering the diabetes. But also, he's starting to get into touch with what is really meaningful to him in his life, and that's kind of how it works. You have to have something to be living for to be vital, mm-hmm. and that's really kind of what we try to do is turn people on. For me, I have a lot I'm living for. I have a wonderful marriage and great grandkids, and we're helping work on global warming. We're doing the diabetes problem. We have lots of things. So there is meaning and value here that's often inspirational, that we consider absolutely important for being vital.
Mm-hmm. Now, Dr. Cousens, it's really interesting because when you talk about what's meaningful, that this can be one of those many cornerstones that move us into a direction of disease because there's just a dis-ease, if you will, about our whole selves. So even eating the right things or doing the right thing, exercising, staying in shape, trying to be as toxin-free as you can, when you take a look at the mental and the spiritual aspects of the whole, and if those are off the rocker, you'll still be somebody who could be exposed to the possibility of disease and sickness.
Absolutely. That's exactly the point. That's completely correct. You really have to be working on, that's what we call a whole person healing, whole person awakening. You really have to have everything. And this is what we call the group where we say, our 15 over group, stages of age. At some point you kind of get, it isn't about how much money you have, it isn't about, how good your muscles look, it is about how meaningful your life is, in including whatever it is for you spiritually, whatever it is for you psychologically and emotionally. We cannot separate those from, just being a good physically working organism. And that's your point, and that's really our point too. And that's what we're saying, and what we feel, because we kind of have a special interest in what we call the stages of age, is that, hey, by the time you hit 50, you're kind of like, what is life about? Mm-hmm. And people ask that. We call it the midlife crisis, right? And it's I'm also a psychologist, a psychiatrist, and family therapist, so we got to kind of have people look at their lives and say, what is my life about? And if you don't ask that question, you're kind of relatively lost. Mm-hmm. You're traveling on whatever you're doing in your life, and it's like, where are you going? And so we ask the question. Now, everybody's unique. We don't tell people what to do. We just say, ask the question.
Mm-hmm. You bring up something really, to me, that is fascinating, and this is over the 5 years that I've been doing the Beyond 50 radio show, for one, but over the many years that I've broadcasted as a journalist, if you will. And that is that we go about being born into this world, and the first thing that we know is unconditional love. As a baby, we just have to be there. And you're showered with love, and there's no expectations except that, hopefully the baby smiles and is laughing and is happy and so forth. But then as we begin to age, we're at the age of 1 and the age of 2 and the age of 3. Pretty soon we start seeing what you would call safety restrictions, reasons for not doing things that your parents tell you. And then as you grow and you begin to go into school, there is the school system saying, try not to make mistakes, do your homework right, make sure that you show up on time. And as you see the layers of restrictions, and I just call them that because generally that's what it is, you're restricted from doing something.
Right.
And as you're a teenager, we've lost, for instance, this day and age in this new technocratic world, the ability to have a rite of passage, a way that you've crossed over from being a child into a young adult into an adult. Then you find yourself in your late teens, 20s, 30s, and 40s, finding yourself abiding by the rules of society and basically conforming to a view, for instance, of what you should be. And when you find yourself finally approaching midlife, then you hear about this, what you would call the midlife crisis. And I kind of think that we get to that age, that as we approach midlife, that the crisis doesn't come from the fact that we realize there were many things we wanted to do that we didn't do, but it's the fear that we still want to do them and what the outcomes might be. What has been your experience in working with people when it comes to that particular scenario?
It's a really eloquent question. And, the key in a certain way is not that you achieve it. The key is the process.
Right.
And if we get people to focus on the process of them having their creative expression and the process of going into something that they were afraid to go into, and we help people. We have a course called the 0 Point Course. It helps people deal with your blockages and your desire and your resistance to what you're doing in your life. That if we focus on the process, then that creative expression comes out, and usually it works out pretty well. So the biggest thing is helping people overcome as you put it out nicely, their programmed inhibitions about how you're supposed to look, how you're supposed to be. And what happens is again, with stages of ages, you get a little bit more free from all these things because you're not in the same constrictions. I mean, it's better to do that from the beginning, but at least at some point you're doing it, right?
Right.
And it's like who cares? I'm just doing what makes me happy. If I want to become a tap dancer because I wanted to do that when I was 5 and now I'm 60 and I want to do it.
Right.
And enjoy the process. And the process of life is where we really get the meaning and value. It's not that I've achieved it. Usually by the time you achieve it, then you're not interested anymore. You've done.
Mm-hmm. It's the experience of the goal rather than the goal itself.
Yeah, it's the experience of living in a way that makes you happy. You have a goal, but you have the process, and the process is where you get all your growth and your joy. That's
now, I know that as people go to Tree of Life, that generally they're there because they want to turn around their diabetes. And that's an area that, as I understand, Tree of Life specializes in, type 1, type 2, different stages of diabetes. But you seem to approach this not only holistically, but against conventional medicine that separates the disease from the host itself.
Right.
And you see the disease as actually part of the host,
Absolutely.
of a whole.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is the way they should, or you're starting to actually see more approaches now when it comes to cancer and other, really serious diseases, that rather than separating, this is separate from you and you're being attacked by this, we need to attack it, and, the war on diabetes, for instance, and we need to win, as though it's an enemy. But actually, diabetes, as I've come to understand, along with other life-threatening diseases, becomes that wake-up call to the things that you kind of stored and just didn't think that were possible in you.
Absolutely. That's you're really eloquent here because really, you don't catch diabetes, you earn it.
Mm-hmm.
Type 2 diabetes. You earn it by your lifestyle. And we take the approach that you have to love yourself enough to want to heal yourself. And so what happens a lot is that that's the focus. Because if people really love themselves, they'll do what they need to do to heal. If you don't love yourself, it's just not, you don't experience it. It's worth it. Now, of course, we do a lot of things. I mean, we don't focus a lot on things like AIDS and things like that, but our focus is all the chronic degenerative diseases. Mm-hmm. You know, I had a person come in with his heart was so clogged that they actually couldn't take the kind of angiograms you need to take to even figure out what's going on. And at that point, he kind of had a more serious wake-up call, right? Couldn't really breathe, couldn't exercise. 3 months down the line, he's exercising. He's, able to do a whole lot of things he couldn't do. But he had to love himself enough to want to heal himself. And he also felt his mind was being affected, which, of course, it was, because he had severe atherosclerosis. And just with some dietary changes and a few things that are particularly good for you, that clean out your arteries, he basically, his thinking process really improved. But it wouldn't have worked unless he cared enough about himself. So our work is getting people to care enough about themselves to kind of go beyond, but understand that they created it. Mm-hmm. All the chronic diseases, we're not, we can talk philosophical about car accidents and you create it and so on. But all the chronic disease you really earn. You really do earn. Mm-hmm. And we basically inspire people to unearn them.
Mm-hmm. And that's very good for you to say, Dr. Cousens, because, again, as I relate back to my earlier broadcasting, there was a time that I interviewed, it was actually one woman, but it was a story about 4 different women of 4 different religious faiths, 4 different stages of cancer, okay, and how their approach was toward healing the cancer. And it's interesting, you don't say killing the cancer, or ridding yourself, or eliminating cancer, but healing it. And to me, that's such a loving word in and of itself. But basically, what she was calling herself along with the other 3 women is that they were what they called cancer initiates, not survivors, but initiates, because as you've just been stating, this is something that comes into to wake you up to a part that's lie dormant that needs lots of love, whatever that may be.
That's beautiful. There's a true story, the best we can tell. It's kind of oral tradition. And King Hezekiah. King Hezekiah was told by the prophet Isaiah that he was going to die, get his will together, and King Hezekiah began, and he had kind of disease, and they were surrounded by 185,000 Assyrians. It was really not a good scene in Jerusalem. And he turned to the wall, and he really opened his heart to God, and he really looked at what he was doing to create the situation. Mm-hmm. And the result is he was able to correct it. Next day, and this is historically true, 185,000 of the Assyrians died of bubonic plague. That's a historical fact. And then he healed, and he lived for many years afterwards. Now, he had the Book of Healing from King Solomon, and he hid it. Now, why did he hide it? He hid it because he said, disease is a wake-up call. And if you just can look up the cure here in the book, then you're missing the wake-up call.
Right.
So it was a brilliant insight. Personally, I would like to find the book because it's trying to help people, but no one knows where the book is. But he did have that book. But he made the whole point. Disease is a spiritual wake-up call, and if you have the book, you're not really going to look at the gift that you're being given.
Mm-hmm. So much like taking, the insulin shot, you don't really change what's going on. You just sustain what's already happened. That's
right, and continue to go downhill.
Now, what's interesting, Dr. Cousens, earlier in the program you brought up the story of the 76-year-old man that came in for your 21-day program because he just decided he didn't want to go the conventional way. What would somebody at that age feel the compelling urge to have that kind of courage to make that choice. And you're beginning to see more and more. It's not that we're walking away from conventional Western medicine. We're just finding that really all it seems to do in situations such as having diabetes, for instance, is that it sustains our life rather than helping us, be having a lot of vitality in life.
He's a guy who, personally, I have to be honest. His wife had kind of been into health things. She kind of pushed him a little bit too.
Okay.
And so he came in a little resistant, but when he saw the results as powerful and as quickly within really just a few days,
mm-hmm.
I mean, we say 100 is normal. Really, 85, 70, 85 is optimal. And he was running in the low 80s. And he continued, for 2.5 of the weeks, he was in the low 80s, which is, perfect. Not just you don't have diabetes, but it's perfect. But what was going on for him is that he was really offended by the doctor saying, the rest of life you're going to be on this insulin, and this is what you're going to do, and he just didn't like being told that. So there was a cantankerous part of him, so to speak, that got him going, plus his wife pushing him. In his time here, he really transformed, and he began to become very, very happy. So there was a little bit of a style of being a little bit of a rebel, too. Yeah. Well,
that's the best way to be, especially.
Yeah. And so, he goes back to, it turned out we grew up, believe it or not, in the same place in Illinois, in the suburbs, and went to the same temple. I mean, it was really interesting. But he was 10 years older. But the point is that he got really inspired by what we're doing, and he really got turned on to the creativity of his own life. And it was great to see him smiling. But there was that rebellion. There's a lot of people who feel that. I've been this and I've done this, and now I'm 76. I'm really not going to just do because some doctor tells me to do this.
Mm-hmm.
People are kind of old enough to get, I don't have to do this. It was like that kind of feeling. It's like, I'm not going to do this. Mm-hmm. And, the doctor said, oh, you're being a fool, and this is ridiculous. And that even got him more inspired.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly that doctor's going to, I can't imagine what he's going to do to that doctor. But
mm-hmm.
the point I'm saying is, it was a little bit of like, that's it. I've had it. I'm going to take care of myself. And there's a place, and I think that happens more with stages of age, where you kind of like get it. It's like, I don't have to do it just because somebody tells me to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more like that feeling.
Mm-hmm. I was just recently out in public, and there was a family. It was actually a mother, her young daughter, and then her own mother as well. Uh-huh. And so grandma, I'll call her that, was type 2 diabetes. The daughter was type 1. And as I was talking with them, the Tree of Life came up, and I thought, I just watched this DVD. I said, go to our website and take a look at this, because one of the things that we talk about on our program in a very consistent, holistic way is a whole approach toward healing and living in vitality. And you could just see the frustration at the one point, especially when it came to her type 1 daughter, is that there just wasn't the answers out there. This was a young girl, probably all of maybe 8 or 9 years old. And you can see how they're hanging on any kind of hope that could get them to do something other than conventional medicine that will actually help heal this. And I said, just take a look, but it made me realize that we're beginning to now see a real paradigm shift in the way people are taking more personal responsibility for their own healing.
Yes, and people are knowing that it isn't working. Now, the movie that you're referring to is 30 Days Raw, Reversing Diabetes Naturally.
Right.
And it's about 6 people who went and did this, out of the blue, 6 kind of typical American diet people. Now, one very important thing is 2 of those people were type 1 diabetics. Mm-hmm. One person healed, running a blood sugar about 73, healed in about 10 days. Mm-hmm. We weren't really expecting that. We expect to see 90-95% of the people with type 2. And what we usually see with type 1 is what we saw with the other person. He went from 70 units to 5 units. Okay, that's fine. That's actually pretty good, but it's not healed. Okay, so there is actually hope for type 1s. But we also are pretty clear that we make no claims to heal type 1. But we have about 6 people who have been healed. So what happens? I mean, these are documented. We have all the blood tests. We have everything. So it is possible. And people are getting that what people are calling incurable isn't incurable. Mm-hmm. And that as long as you're still walking around, and the possibility of changing these things is really there. And it's not to give people false hope, but at least it's options. So what we see with the diabetic program, hey, you have an option. If you love yourself enough to want to heal yourself, things can happen, particularly for type 2. You're told it's incurable and downhill. That's it,
Eventually, you might get a foot severed, for instance, or, that it's just, your energy will never be the same again. Exactly.
Right, and what we're showing people that just isn't true. And the reason it isn't true is that if you're just doing the conventional dietary, it doesn't work. So they're right. If you do it their way, it doesn't work. If you do it our way, which is more radical, requiring the whole person attention, in other words, the disease gets your attention, you do the right thing, then you're looking at very high success rates. Very high success rates, and that's in my book, There's a Cure for Diabetes. We just took the first 11 people we started, tracking, and all their blood tests go the normal. Everything is really the way it should be. So it's possible, but you have to be a little radical. You have to really care about yourself and kind of go out of your way. You have to actually change your life a little bit.
Well, and there's the key, too, there, Dr. Cousens, that you're talking about. When you say radical, it's really saying go back to the state of the reason you were put here was to be co-creator. And that takes a radical shift rather than just being somebody who, contributes to basically sustain your own life, but you're really stepping beyond that to even get to a point of not just serving life, but serving others in life as well.
Perfect. That's exactly right. And that's, well stated. We are really co-creators of our own life. Your destiny unfolds, but we can draw through our own self-effort, we can draw a certain amount of grace that can shift the field. That's kind of what's happening is, and people, who are coming from we call the baby boomers, the 60s, where we all kind of grew up in, it's like, we already had that attitude from that generation. So, right? I mean, it's true.
We certainly did.
Yeah, and now we're starting to apply it at another phase of our life. Mm-hmm. Where we're more out of the system. And that's very exciting. I mean, we really enjoy encouraging people to really turn on to life, and I think that's the point. That's the whole point about bringing out the 601 push-ups. Like, what are you doing? You're 40 years old, 40 years later, and you're 9 times more. How did that happen? But it can happen, and that's the thing. See, we have to be open to the possibility, and you have to do the work to create that possibility.
Which also brings another element. We just had on our program roughly about an hour ago a woman who's now in her early 70s who produced a book talking about her, as they called, sexcapades on a road trip with someone, and it was an interracial relationship. But what was interesting is, as I said, so here you have this relationship with a black man. It was the first one. She was a Jewish woman who came from a traditional Jewish family raised in a small town in New Jersey. So you can take a look at, how their culture is. It's about tradition and not breaking the envelope, but staying within the status quo. But she does this anyway, and I said that must have been a profound change in how you broke your belief system, or at least a particular belief system, not necessarily about race, but that you went outside of what you were traditionally raised to know and believe. And you can see that as people came to the Tree of Life, I'm sure, Dr. Cousens, is that's a lot of entanglement that people deal with too. Their beliefs about where they are, where they think they should be, the way society as a whole judges us on where we should be, those markers, if you will. And she said, it was really amazing to do that because a whole flood of things just came out of me, and she says it was like realizing my personal passion, and that's key to vitality.
Yes, and one of the things we do in the 0 Point course is it's about showing people how to dissolve all their belief systems so they can really access their authentic nature.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're talking about is exactly key here. You've got to clear all the cultural belief systems so you can really be your authentic self. And that's the core to vitality in a certain way.
I was going to say, even back to the story of the 76-year-old that went into your 21-day program, as I understand, began having sex with his wife again.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. And, because everything works, the thing with diabetes is your circulation becomes impaired.
Mm.
For a man, that means impotency,
Mm.
So it's quite neat to see those things happening. And even the belief system, I don't know how old this lady was in the sex phase, but basically, there's no reason why people in their 70s or 80s can't be having very enjoyable active sexual life.
Mm-hmm.
You're not too old to have sex.
Mm-hmm.
But if your physical, body isn't working right, of course, it makes it hard. But truly, once everything gets going, all that also begins to work right.
Now, Dr. Cousens, tell us about the Tree of Life mission itself and how you see what you folks are doing out there really having an impact on the way society as a whole is functioning.
So we see ourselves as helping people transition to what we're going to call the culture of death into the culture of life. This is kind of another term we use. And the culture of death is kind of focused on pharmaceuticals, junk food, domination type thinking, and the culture of life is about really reconnecting with your own personal nature and Mother Nature, natural healing, natural eating, healthy family relationships, and healthy couple relationships, and healthy green building. So we're really teaching. In fact, we even have a course now on green, how to grow your own food in a greenhouse setting. Okay, so because we know that it's harder and harder to get good, healthy, organic food.
Isn't that true?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're teaching people how to grow their own. And, you get a little greenhouse and you grow your own. And then you know it. And what else is happening is you are reconnecting with nature. So this is the culture of life. So our thing is to bring in that whole kind of people starting to reconnect to what makes life. What makes life, and then what makes your life? And then we extend it, and we're doing, for example, a fast and that helps people at Agape in Los Angeles. And the theme, and we're going to be doing this in New York, Boston, Toronto, Vancouver, Portland. The theme is simple. We know that when you fast, somewhere between 5 and 7 days, your cellular memory actually disappears.
Wow.
Yeah, and actually this is research that that's been our experience, and that's really easy then to go in the plant source, because you got the casomorphines that are in your milk, and some of them are 1/10 as strong as morphine. It's like, oh, whoa, and then you have addiction to meat that actually is physical addicting, and all these things clear. Now, there was a research done in Australia. They call it epigenetic memory. And they're able to show that you have one piece of chocolate, and that's going to stay in your cell memory for a few weeks, and it's going to make you crave chocolate. It's very interesting. This is just a straight, medical school in Australia. So what happens is people, they fast, clears the memory, and then they're able to do a diet that actually is going to, a plant source only, where you're going to decrease global warming significantly. If you go plant source only for 1 year, you save 1.5 tons of carbon dioxide, which is quite a lot.
Yes, that is.
So it's significant, and so we're inspiring people to inspire other people to see not only what they eat and how that affects the planet, but to turn on to life, because that everybody becomes a teacher then. Everybody becomes an inspirer. So as a grandparent, you're inspiring your kids, your grandkids, and everybody else around, and that way, sages of ages begin to really express. Now, of course, we have people who are young people too, and they're inspiring the people around them. So everybody's inspiring kind of peers in a certain way. And so our work is to really empower people to heal themselves and then inspire other people to heal beyond that. We have a website called GabrielCousens.com, which is very much around inspiring. It's got a lot of videos and tapes and interviews and a lot of information on it, and also a part called Live with Gabriel, where once a month we do a nutritional Q&A, live Q&A, as well as spiritual and relationship questions and answers. And it allows people, we've had people from 93 different countries come to the Tree of Life. It allows us to do a tremendous support, because there's another little piece. It really, really, people take time to change. And I don't care if you're 20 or you're 80, it takes time. It usually takes about a year or two. And this allows people a certain amount of support to make it work for them in their life. So that's another thing, GabrielCousens.com, where we have a whole support system, in place to help with the change. Because the more people who can change to the culture of life, the more the world's going to want to go that way, and the easier that transition will be. Does that make sense? That's kind of really what we're talking about, and that's our mission in a way, is to bring health, vitality, love, and spirit to the world.
Also, too, I was thinking, Dr. Cousens, as you talk about the sage of the ages, is that that should be an alarm right there, especially here in the United States, that generally we think of our aging parents and grandparents and great-grandparents as sitting around, eventually finding their way into nursing homes, finding themselves having to be on a regular medication schedule, and that's the end of their productive lives, and that's growing at such an alarming rate. That's not the way call them the old growth forest or the elders should be.
Absolutely.
They should be very active in the community. They're the story that helps remind us of not only who we are, but where we can go. And these people are becoming sedated, sitting around watching television, and that's how we honor our elders now. That should be a huge alarm right there in and of itself.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it's a little ridiculous,
I want to border on saying stupid, but
yeah.
God forbid being politically correct. But
the people are programmed. See, we have that program, and it's really, really unfortunate. And we're really breaking that program. For sages of age, we're basically saying we're breaking the program. At 66, I'm, kind of leading that flow. I mean, the body, my physical body is about the age of 20, and it's stronger than it was 20. Well, what does that say? That means everybody can do that if you give it the attention. Not everybody's going to do 601 push-ups, but the point is, you give it attention, you then have a body that's really working for you.
Mm-hmm.
And once you have a body that's working for you, and it goes on. I mean, the tradition is you should be. It says they said with Moshe, he was 120, as alert as he was when he was 40.
Mm-hmm.
That's not unreasonable. So what we're trying to do is reset the expectation of, hey, well, that's what you do. You just kind of hang out and fall apart. It's like that's not really a very great expectation. I mean, what fun is that?
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at some of the great, Picasso and people, the great artists and musicians, they go even better with age. And there's no reason that we can't do that if we have a physical body that's working right for us. And I think That's the key here.
I totally agree. Well, Dr. Cousens, please go ahead and give out your website and how people can find out more about Tree of Life.
Yeah.
Because, this day and age is my understanding that 1 in 3 lives are affected by diabetes. And that may not be you directly, but it may be someone you know or someone you know who knows someone. And, and it's allowing them the opportunity to know resources such as yours are available out there that can really transform a life, not just simply by healing a disease as a possible outcome, but certainly changing the vitality of your body while you're having to live with this element of you called a disease.
Perfect. So there's treeoflife.nu, like New University, and we have a website that kind of lays it out really nicely, but it's www.treeoflife.nu. That's simple. Mm-hmm. And then our follow-up program and also really a lot of our information is at GabrielCousens.com. Those are your 2 things. The fasting one for helping the global warming is called JuicedFastForPeace.com. So there's 3 things. GabrielCousens.com, which is simple, and they all cross-refer. treeoflife.nu and JuicedFastForPeace.com. So those are the ways to check in, and we have people willing to, but at the Tree of Life, we have people who are very happy to speak to you on the phone, give you a sense of the programs. The website, we have literally over 40 kind of, I'm going to say integrated programs, because we see everything as an integration, where they all kind of lead into each other, and that's what we offer to people, and we're just really excited to be able to share with people, and we're putting a special attention on stages of age, partly because that's where I am, right, at 66. I guess I qualify there, right?
Well, and the beauty of what you do and what we're talking about is that we also want our young people to realize that growing older is something you want to celebrate,
Absolutely.
Because you're older, you know now what you wished you knew then, but you feel like you do, like you did then, and that's what you really want.
Yeah, see, people always say, gee, if I was 20 and I had the wisdom now, it'd be great. Well, now we can create bodies that are 20, but have the wisdom to how to operate them.
Yeah, it reminds me of one of my favorite all-time movies that talks that really hits on that issue. It's a George Burns movie called 18 Again. And it's a story where he's celebrating his 81st birthday, and his grandson is 18, and they have a very close relationship. And as it happens, as he sings and he makes the wish that he wishes he was 18 again because he had that much fun. It wasn't about regrets. He just wishes he could do it again. And it happens that their spirits, through a car accident, switch places. So his spirit is now in his grandson's body while he stays in a coma. And so here he is in college, but now he's got the wisdom of an 81-year-old. But that's exactly what we're talking about here.
That's exactly, and it's so much fun.
It should be.
I mean, I can't tell you how much life is really a party and a joy. It's so nice. Your body is just not an obstruction to your life, and it's a good way to live.
Well, Dr. Gabriel Cousens, it's been a pleasure to have you on our program, and also you've already given the website out, and I'm sure it's on there. But give the title of that DVD where you have the people come to try to reverse their diabetes.
It's 30 Days Raw Reversing Diabetes Naturally.
Well, very good. Well, Dr. Cousens, again, thank you for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program.
Hey, thank you. It's great talking to you, and you did a great interview. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I want to also thank you listeners out there for tuning into the program. This is Beyond 50, and we have many resources, including Tree of Life, where you can find out more about what they do, because, again, 1 in 3 people are affected by diabetes, but it can be healed, and you can feel better. And you don't necessarily have to go the traditional ways, but just to let you know, these are medically supervised programs that they get you involved in. So if that's a concern, again, just call these folks. They'll be able to let you know and help you one way or the other to achieve the kind of goals that you're looking for. So you can simply visit us at our website at beyond50radio.com. That is the number 5050. And there you can also sign up for our free weekly e-newsletter. It comes out by email every single week, where we also have these resources available as well. We want to thank all of you for joining us here today. This is the Beyond 50 Radio program. I'm Daniel Davis, and remember, live your day past halfway.